Hello everyone, I'm Abigail Spanberger and I am proud to represent Virginia's 7th District in Congress. And I am grateful for the opportunity to extend my hellos and my greetings as you all gather for this wonderful event and for the screening of the Common Ground documentary. I am sorry to miss it, but I'm so grateful to Climate System Solutions for their work in organizing this event and bringing so many important voices together to discuss agriculture and conservation and really the goals that are highlighted throughout the Common Ground documentary. I hope you all enjoy the evening. And I want to say thank you to all of the producers and all of the folks who've joined this evening to add to the conversation, to bring a diversity of voices and experience sets to understanding the challenges we face within our communities, certainly across the Commonwealth and within the country as we endeavor to combat climate change, as we endeavor to ensure that we are leaving this earth in a better place than we found it to our kids and our grandkids. I want to give a special shout out to some of the producers in the room who I know I represent. Thank you for serving as a resource time and time again for me and for my team here on Capitol Hill. Again, I'm so sorry to miss you all this evening. I hope it's a productive conversation. I hope it's an enjoyable evening. And again, thank you so much to Climate System Solutions for your work in putting this together and bringing so many important voices together for a wonderful, wonderful evening and discussion.
All right, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. You can see each of the panelists up on the screen behind, so we'll let them go through some brief introductions, but I basically want to turn it over to Peggy Singelman down at the far end there, and let her take over master ceremonies, and I'll be at her beckoning call to come out and pick up any questions that any of you might have in the audience once we have a brief discussion up here in front. So with that, we'll get started. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. I was thinking this evening that we would start first by finding out who you were, and then you can hear who we are, okay? And so I know it's kind of hard with the lights in our eyes, but I was hoping, how many, do we have any farmers in this audience at all, besides the two up front? Yay, we've got some, yay! And some in the back. Fantastic. Oh, some over there too. How many homeowners do we have in the audience? Okay. Now, of you, how many of you grow vegetables and food on your property? Fantastic. Fantastic. I'll raise my hand too, okay? We just want to know who you are, and we're hoping that you have questions. But first, I think you want to hear who these folks are. I'm kind of new to the horticulture world. No, I'm not. Anyway, I've been fortunate to have a career of growing on a 100-acre public park not far from here for 38 years. And during that career, I was able to transition from growing, I'll say the old-fashioned way, to a more ecologically sound way. And I won't call it farming, but it is in a way. The crop was beauty, and we still had to farm or sow and grow in the same soil year after year after year. And so through those practices of adding to the soil with a tremendous amount of compost, reducing our use of any type of pesticide, and doing a lot of things by hand rather than by what was on our back, we were able to bring back the health of that soil. And it continues to grow even to this day. So I'm going to introduce Kara Boyd to you. And Kara, please introduce yourself. And she's our star from the movie. And but tell us about your background and your farm, as well as when did you actually embrace the regenerative effort farming style, or have you always done that?
Tanake, Tanedo, Mayat Kara. Hello, my name is Kara Boyd. I'm a member of the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina. Our tribe is the largest tribe east of the Mississippi, and I'm glad to be here with you today. I always say, you know, as an indigenous farmer, I've been farming all my life. As a very young child, I started in the tobacco fields of my great uncles, picking up leaves and doing things of that nature. My great aunt, you know, milked the cow, and we got to churn butter. So I've basically been farming probably ever since I could walk. And I've always enjoyed that part of my culture. And so I actually now am married to John Boyd, founder and president of the National Black Farmers Association. He's a civil rights activist, and we own about 2,000 acres in Southside, Virginia. And we're regenerative farmers. We do row crop, but we also have a beef cattle operation. And so when you're looking at regenerative agriculture, the implementation of livestock into that crop production is very vital. And so we've been very proactive in transitioning our row crop farms into being regenerative ag farms. And so I've really encompassed it. I had a term on the board for Kiss the Ground, and I was invited by Representative Rokana to testify before the House Environmental Committee on regenerative agriculture. And so I've been very proactive and advocate for farming, agricultural sustainability, and environmental protection, because as indigenous people, we want to make sure that what we're doing is going to have a very positive impact for 7 generations going forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Michael Carter, who, Michael, you've been a farmer as well all of your life, so could you tell us about yourself, please?
Good afternoon. What time is it? Good morning. I'm Michael Carter Jr., and I've been a farmer, I guess, most of my life. A lot of it unwillingly. I'm a 5th-generation farmer on my family farm, and as a young person, when you grow up in it, you don't want to ever do it. So I made about 13 pledges to myself between the ages of 12 to 18 that I would never work on a farm again in my life. I lied to myself a lot, apparently. And I ended up going to school at North Carolina A&T State University, where I majored in agriculture and told myself I would never work in agriculture again. I left America, went to Ghana. I worked in agriculture there and said I'd never return back to America again. Yeah, so. But I've always been inspired by health and regenerative practices. I've been a vegan for about 20 years, and I've always focused on, at least for the last 20 years, on what I've eaten. And understanding where your food comes from is the most critical aspect of being, to me, a good human. What I didn't hear a lot of in the documentary was the responsibility of the consumer. Like, this is election season. Matter of fact, it's election day. And this morning, this afternoon, and this evening, you all voted with your dollars and your fork. Who did you vote for? Did you vote for your health? Did you vote for your local farmers? Or did you vote for the individuals on there who were the more antagonists of the film? Because it's easy to blame Monsanto, it's easy to blame the government, it's easy to blame all of those other boogeymen and boogie women. I don't want to discriminate. But a lot of times you got to blame yourself, that these institutions only do what the consumer allows them to do and requests of them to do. If you go into your refrigerator, which part of the refrigerator is dedicated to produce? The 2 bottom shelves that you pull in and out. But the other 80% of the refrigerator is dedicated to what? Condiments, juice, energy drinks, wine, a lot of wine. Yeah. But what are we doing as a consumer to make sure we change those things? Because if you're not voting for our local farmers in Virginia, who are you voting for? This past census, we've lost approximately 4,000 farmers between 2017 and now 2022. We lost them because you all didn't vote for us. Not the government didn't vote for us. Not Monsanto didn't vote for us, but look at yourselves. I see you. I see every last one of y'all didn't vote for me. So we have to do a better job of making sure that we vote for our local farmers, getting those local farmers' names, information that's here. Renard Turner at Vanguard Ranch, Judge Graham at Hampton Urban Agriculture. I didn't see the other farmers there, but I know they're here. Making sure that we build relationships with these local farmers to make sure they keep us, you all keep us, and keep us in office and in the fields for another season to grow healthy, regenerative vegetables for you. I don't know if that was the question you asked, but that's the question I answered.
Sounds like a good answer to me, Michael. We'll get back with you on that in a little bit. We have one more Michael to introduce, Michael Collins. Please tell us about yourself, sir.
Yeah, before I say anything, this just hit me sitting up here. To be a white man, it's a quasi-reformed redneck with these, you know, these folks, people of color. I mean, I'm just profoundly humbled to be up here with the two of you all, and I'm just sort of gobsmacked. So professionally, I'm with Soul Keepers. We do the kind of thing, or not the kind of thing, the exact thing that the film talked about. We use tools like this right here. This is a soil auger, and this is one of the things we use to do baseline diagnostic work for homeowners and for farmers and for solar energy companies so that they can do regenerative management. And it's, you know, I don't really have anything else to say except, you know, everybody here can do what they're talking about in the movie. Every single person here can do it, right? Starting tonight, tomorrow.
Thank you, Michael. I have a question for you, though, sir. What is through your company, what is your biggest success in your estimation, in your evaluation?
So we are primarily grasslands managers, and we do regenerative turf grass management. And I think that the work that we've done in taking estate and residential landowners where you have had the grass that was sprayed with synthetic fertilizers and herbicides for years and years, sometimes decades, and transitioning those clients out of that into a regenerative management system and having them stick with us for 5 to 10 years, and basically, unlike other landscape management companies, come to the end of the day, walking up to them and shaking their hand and saying, "You're done. The system takes care of you now. Your biology takes care of you. There's no need for any more labor. There's no need for any more amendments. Your biology takes care of you." You know, that's probably the best thing that's happened.
Thank you. I wanted to ask Michael Carter and Kara Boyd, what are your biggest challenges with regenerative farming, with the practices involved?
The biggest challenges for me is finding the time to do it, first and foremost, and then applying the principles in the time that it needs to be done, and having the patience to wait for it to happen. Because these processes that sometimes has historically taken eons, we're trying to have done in 2 weeks, and it's just not realistic. So, you know, really making sure that you're patient, and you're patient with other people's expectations. That when, some of the other challenges is the education. On there, you hear a lot of discussion around weeds. It's not really a weed, we just haven't quite figured out the purpose for this plant in this ecosystem, and understood the language that the earth is trying to teach us in terms of what purpose this plant serves for maybe not me. Maybe the deer that's eating all of my other crops, that ultimately, if it grows up, the deer will eat this instead of my crops, I'm hoping. We have like plantain all throughout our plots, all throughout our land. Plantain is not the plantain like the banana, but the grass plantain. The seeds from plantain is known as psyllium husk, which is the seed for Metamucil. So I'm trying to create a Metamucil factory. I'm playing. but it's revealing some things to me in terms of the land is teaching so much, and that's probably the biggest challenge, is having enough time to learn all that it's teaching me in the process, and taking the time, and then realizing I'm not passing all the tests. I thought it did this, but it's really doing this, and it may take me another 2 or 3 seasons to understand the role of this particular plant, the role of rabbits eating my crops, the role of deer eating my crops, the role, those are the things that I'm learning and trying to be a better neighbor to all of the other creatures and entities that are around me, to make sure that I'm in harmony, that I can't give the deer lead poisoning as much as I want to, because it has a role in the greater ecosystem. I can't spray for mosquitoes because I would like to see bats. And I hate mosquitoes, and I'm pretty sure everybody here hates mosquitoes, but they have a role in the greater ecosystem, and that's the patience and the maturity that it takes for us to understand that all these beings have a purpose on this land, and if the purpose is to bite you and suck your blood, so be it.
Kara?
Thank you, Michael. Those are definitely good lessons that I think that we're all learning. One of my biggest challenges is resources. To transition, it takes money. And we know what needs to be done, but sometimes we can only do what our pockets will allow us to do. So one of the farms that we have, it's about 1,000 acres. It was originally a dairy farm, and then it became a tobacco farm, and then it became a conventional row crop farm. And so now, as we're transitioning to regenerative ag, we want to integrate the livestock, our beef cattle operation. And that would be the quickest way and cheapest way for us to build our soil health and to get fertilizer, because we have some low grounds that just aren't very productive. We were able to fence in 20 acres, and it's roughly about $1,000 an acre. So it was $20,000 to fence in 20 acres. Well, I got 1,000 acres at $1,000 an acre. And, we can't do that. And as the film portrayed, there's a lot of money that goes into subsidies, but there's very limited resources for farmers like myself who want to transition over to something that's more healthily and economically viable and sustainable, because with the cow manure, I wouldn't have to buy artificial fertilizer. And so these are the things that farmers want to do so that we can produce a healthier food. When I take my soybean crop to the local grain elevator in Petersburg, they don't ask me how many applications of Roundup I've applied. They just buy it. And it goes into these silos, and it ends up in your cereal. It ends up into all these things. And fortunately, I had an opportunity to meet with the other key people in this movie. And it's very alarming. My granddaughter here is 4 years old. She just had a birthday yesterday. When you hear about glyphosate in breast milk, when we hear about glyphosate in rainwater. So these are the things, as a conventional farmer transitioning to regenerative ag, that I'm challenged with, is that I can't do more quicker and to be more proactive in this arena because we have limited resources.
Thank you. Are the black farmers in Virginia transitioning to regenerative ag? Or I know we have the Virginia Biological Farmers Association, but to what degree, and I ask this to Michael Carter as well as Kara, in our farming community in Virginia, how, or I can't say how many, but what is your opinion of people transitioning to a more regenerative agricultural style?
Well, I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this, but we were regenerative before it was a term, regenerative. In the movie, okay. I refer to it as these are indigenous principles. And a lot of farmers, especially minority farmers, small-scale, limited resource farmers, have always used chicken litter as opposed to artificial fertilizers. They've used their cow manures. We have manure spreaders. And so some of these things, but as the agrochemical industry and things took over, just like with our conventional seeds, that was $20 a bag, they bought out the seed companies. So now you have no choice but to buy GMO-modified seeds at $50 to $60 a bag. So, a lot of times it's not because of the farmers transitioning away from the regenerative or indigenous practices. It was the industry forcing them to go that way because of the profitability. and what was available. And so now we find more farmers going back to the indigenous regenerative practices because they just can't afford the chemical way of doing things anymore. The suicide rate is very high. The debt rate is very high for farmers. And so it would be in farmers' best interest, especially minority farmers, to find a way to be more regenerative, because regenerative ag actually cuts out the input for artificial fertilizers and things like that that are cost prohibitive for farmers.
Yeah, I see a greater increase in social disadvantage of minority farmers. As Ms. Boyd stated, these are indigenous practices and indigenous to wherever individuals are throughout the world, Africa, Asia, Latin America, as well as indigenous Americans. The practices resonate with a lot of newer farmers or individuals getting into farming because they understand or have a better understanding of the health implications of the food. And especially for small-scale farmers, it makes no sense at all to use any type of glyphosate on, it's not even practical. You can't afford the seeds. And last time I went to a farmer's market, I didn't see soybeans or dent corn, or wheat that we had to mill to make our own bread. You see broccoli, you see cabbage, you see spinach, amaranth, et cetera, that cannot tolerate the abuses of glyphosate. And there's almost a return back to our mother, to the sense of making sure that when we take up these practices, these are sacred practices for ourselves. We're remembering our ancestors as we're planting these seeds. And we're remembering also they didn't utilize the modern technology or innovation of poisoning the land or the crop to get a yield. That when you went to your grandmother's house, there was no glyphosate, there was none of that. We had a rotation of peas or string beans with sweet potatoes, with lettuce or spinach, and then you would throw in some wild indigenous plants like poke salad, pigweed, or something else that you would utilize, dandelion, and it kept a rotation. So we're returning back to a lot of those principles of regenerative because it's in our nature, it's in our blood, it's in our genes. And we also understand from a consumer standpoint that the consumer may not understand all that makes up genetically modified organisms or conventional agriculture, but they will ask you those questions. And as a farmer, you need to answer those questions in a way that's honest, that's true to yourself and true to your community. So if they ask you, have you sprayed with XYZ chemicals or sprayed chemicals at all, the best answer is no. Having to stumble around and saying I sprayed azamactin or any of these other fungicides or herbicides would not appeal to your consumer and ultimately would not provide any type of business for you or your consumer. So a lot of us have effectively chosen not to even remotely get near any of those things and only to use natural pest repellents or pesticides like neem, like garlic or cayenne pepper or some of those things for smaller scale farmers.
Thank you, sir. Michael Collins, do you have anything to add? No.
Nope.
Okay. Well, then why don't we open it up to questions from the floor? Joel, do you want to go out into the audience?
Yep.
Anybody have any questions? So we've got a gentleman right here. And we're going to talk with the gentleman right here in the front. Thank you.
It's my Jay Leno.
He's doing his Jay Leno impersonation.
Yep. My name is Gil Sigmund. I'm president of the RVA Environmental Film Festival. So I and those who work with me to bring the festival to Richmond are very, very interested in the environmental message that this film brings. So I want to make it clear I support, the message that soil could be a significant factor in our solutions for climate change. So I'm very hopeful of that. I have two questions. One should be softball, easy. The second might be more challenging. So the first question is, do we also need to include the cost of carbon in our decision-making processes? And I want to thank Kara for talking about that money is a barrier to accomplishing things. And Michael, labor and resources are barriers to accomplishing things. So the question is, do we need to include carbon in our decision-making processes? And the follow-up question would be, what is the major economic barrier towards implementing this?
Who wants to give that a try?
I'll take a stake at it, yes. Including carbon is very important. The challenge to that is having a standardized system for calculating that. And so, as each farmer is collecting those soil samples, that no matter what lab you send it to, you should have a standard procedure and get a standard reading. So that's been one of the challenges. And with some of the carbon programs, there are NDAs and there are non-disclosures, and there's not transparency. And so in the carbon market, those are the challenges that we see for our farmers, is that we don't have standardized testing and the NDAs and the lack of transparency. And with the farmer taking on a contract, if he's compensated for a certain amount of carbon to be captured, and then when it tests and he's lower than that, then he has to pay back. So that's what we're looking at, is a system that's fair, accountable, transparent, and keeps the farmer, on the land. And a way to implement that, I think, is to have a standardized system that is put into place that is agreeable across the globe, not something that is just put in place by a particular part of the sector.
Yeah. And I agree with you. In addition, though, I think we need to include farm labor into the equation of food before we include carbon. Most farmers do not include their labor, their time, in the price of their produce or proteins. That we just kind of have a built-in Walmart-based price of $2 a pound for X, Y, and Z, and that's kind of the standard for how we pay for produce or proteins. Yeah, having a carbon credit would be awesome, but who would receive it and for what purpose? We're already looking at almost said 8 cents on every dollar goes to the farmer. The carbon credit would probably make that 7 cents or 6 cents. We should move that up to about 20 cents or 30 cents per dollar to go to the farmer. That will then incentivize them to make sure that the practices that are being done are done because he can actually afford to do these practices. It doesn't make any sense to set up another organization that would employ people at $40, $50, $60, $70,000 a year, and our farmers are struggling to make ends bend every season. And that's a challenge that we have. We don't, as Americans and as consumers, we don't pay enough for our food. Yet, our farmers, we're dedicated right now. A lot of us are itching to get back outside tomorrow to put something in the ground because that is on us. And we're going to know that come April, May, June, as the farmers markets start to open up, we're going to have to fight with customers about how much we're going to actually get for our food, and ultimately, how do we now take care of our insurance for ourselves and our families? One of the biggest challenges is making sure that we don't have extermination level events with our farmers. Without our farmers, carbon or not, we're not going to have anybody to grow the food that we need to support ourselves. And it's, and myself and Mike, we work on a grant with a climate smart grant for USDA that measures or is developing a protocol to measure deep soil carbon. So we are working on that, and it's going to take probably a couple more years, decades, eons. We haven't figured out yet, but it's coming along in terms of we're working on it and we're trying to create these measures, but it's almost like building the plane as you're flying it. And right now we've seen what Boeing is doing. Forgive my jokes, I can't help it.
Yeah, just to sort of echo what Michael said. So, Soil Keepers, which is it is a nonprofit landscape management entity, is one of 4 programs of a large organization called American Climate Partners. American Climate Partners last year, with Michael's entities, got a Climate Smart grant, and our contract with USDA is to roll out what Kara is talking about in the southeast states, and including Virginia, a standard assessment for carbon. Our organization, depending upon what program you're talking about, we are carbon project developers, and we are also carbon verifiers. And so to your question, yes, we need to carbon, and it needs to, in the future, be an income stream for landowners. But I would also like to take this opportunity to say it goes beyond carbon. The flywheel of carbon is in sync with the flywheel of nitrogen, and the flywheel of nitrogen and carbon is in sync with the water cycle. And in the future, as hopefully humans that have a much greater understanding of our place in this realm, we will learn how to develop income streams for all of these biogeochemical cycles that interact with our land and with our planet. And so it's not just about carbon. And in fact, with the climate problem, I'm sure most of you know, carbon is a driver for what happens with climate, but actually the work is done by water vapor in the air. Another interesting thing just to note, when, I forget who it was talking in the film, and they talked about how water vapor, is transpired and goes to make the clouds. Go on YouTube and look up a guy named Walter Jenney, Jehne. He's a geologist from Australia, and he's doing amazing work looking at what is causing cloud nucleation. It's not just water vapor. It is the bacteria that is evapotranspiring with the water that's going up and nucleating and causing the cloud formation. So there we have if Walter's right, there is a direct connection between soil health and cloud formation. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Michael. I'll also put on my arborist hat and say that there are formulas for each genus of tree to calculate the amount of carbon that they are sequestering. So in the urban forests, such as Richmond, Virginia, they actually have already calculated through VCU the amount of carbon that is being held by those trees and being sequestered. So you have